The rain hammered against the windows of Kensington Palace like bullets. Inside the grand hall, Sergeant James Hartley stood at attention, his red uniform crisp, his face carved from stone. He had served the royal family for 12 years. He had protected them through protests, through threats, through chaos. But nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen today. Prince William walked past him, his jaw tight, his eyes distant. Something was wrong. James could always tell. The prince carried tension in his shoulders, a weight that seemed heavier than usual. Behind him, voices echoed from the drawing room, sharp, angry. One of them belonged to Queen Camilla. James didn't move. He wasn't supposed to listen. But the walls were thin, and the words cut through like knives. "You're being unreasonable, William," Camilla's voice rang out, cold and precise. "The public needs a villain. And I'm afraid your little guard dog out there is going to have to play the part."
Ow.
James felt his stomach drop. Were they talking about him? Before you hear what happens next, if you love real stories about loyalty, sacrifice, and the hidden battles behind palace walls, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. William's response was quieter, but James heard every word. He's done nothing wrong. He's served this family with honor. "I won't let you destroy him to save your reputation," Camilla laughed. It wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. "You think honor matters? The press is coming for me, William. They're writing their poison. If I don't give them someone else to chew on, they'll tear me apart. And I won't let that happen." James's heart pounded. He stared straight ahead, his hands locked behind his back. This couldn't be real. He had spent over a decade protecting these people. He had missed birthdays, anniversaries, his daughter's first steps, all for this family. And now he was being offered up like bait. The door to the drawing room opened. William stepped out first, his face pale. He glanced at James just for a second. There was something in his eyes. Regret. Maybe even shame. Camilla followed. She was elegant, as always. Perfectly dressed, her expression calm. She didn't look at James. She didn't need to. He was already beneath her notice. "Sergeant Hartley," she said softly, still not meeting his eyes. "I trust you understand the importance of discretion." James swallowed hard. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Good," she smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes, because tomorrow the story breaks, and you'll be in it. She walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor. William stayed behind. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I tried," William said quietly. His voice cracked, just a little. "I tried to stop her." James nodded. He didn't trust himself to speak. What could he say? That it was fine? That he understood? He didn't. He felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. What happens now? James finally asked. William looked at him, and for the first time, James saw something he'd never seen before. Fear. "Tomorrow morning," William said, "the press will report that you were involved in leaking private information about the family, that you betrayed us. It's a lie, but Camilla's team has already planted the evidence. Fake emails, fake testimonies. They've built a whole narrative." James felt his chest tighten. "Why me?" "Because you're loyal," William said bitterly. "Because you won't fight back. Because you're the perfect scapegoat." The prince turned and walked away, leaving James alone in the hallway. Outside, thunder rumbled. The storm was getting worse, and James knew that by morning, his entire life would be destroyed. Asterisk, James didn't sleep that night. He sat in his small apartment, staring at the wall. The clock ticked. Each second felt like a hammer blow. At 5 in the morning, his phone started buzzing. Text messages. Dozens of them. Then the calls began. His brother. His sister. Old friends from the military. All asking the same question. Is it true? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he opened his laptop and searched. His own name. The headlines hit him like punches. Royal Guard betrays Prince William. Palace insider leaked private conversations. Sergeant sold secrets to tabloids. His hand shook as he scrolled. Every major news outlet had picked up the story. There were photos of him in uniform, standing beside William at public events. The articles painted him as greedy, disloyal, a man who had traded honor for money. None of it was true. His phone rang again. This time, it was his commanding officer. James answered heartily. The voice was cold. Professional. You're suspended pending investigation. Turn in your credentials by noon. Sir, that's not for me to decide. But until this is resolved, you're relieved of duty. The line went dead. James set the phone down carefully. His hands were trembling. 12 years. Gone. Just like that. A knock at the door made him jump. He stood slowly, his legs heavy. When he opened it, he found a reporter and a cameraman standing in the hallway. Sergeant Hartley, can you comment on the allegations? The reporter shoved a microphone toward his face. James stepped back. No comment. Did you really leak information about Prince William's private conversations? I said no comment. Are you ashamed of what you've done? Something inside, James snapped. He looked directly into the camera. I served the royal family with everything I had. I gave them 12 years of my life, and this is how they repay me. The reporter's eyes lit up. She had her soundbite. James slammed the door. He knew he'd made a mistake, but he was too angry to care. By noon, that clip was everywhere. Social media exploded. Half the country called him a traitor. The other half wondered if there was more to the story. But no one knew the truth. No one except William. And he wasn't talking. James drove to the palace to turn in his credentials. The guards at the gate looked at him differently now. Not with respect. With suspicion. With disgust, he walked through those halls one last time. The same halls he had patrolled for over a decade. Now they felt foreign. Cold in the security office, he handed over his badge, his keys, his weapon. The officer processing him didn't meet his eyes. That's everything, James said quietly. I'll be contacted if we need anything else. James turned to leave. But as he reached the door, he heard footsteps behind him. Sergeant, he turned. It was Prince William. The prince looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, his face drawn and pale. He glanced around to make sure they were alone. I'm sorry, William whispered. I'm so sorry. James felt a lump in his throat. Then fix it. I can't. Camilla has the palace press office, the legal team, everything. If I go against her now, it becomes a civil war. And the crown can't afford that. So I'm just collateral damage. James's voice cracked. William looked at the floor. I'll make sure you're compensated. Financially, I'll do what I can behind the scenes. I don't want your money, James said. I want my honor back. I know. William's voice was barely audible. But I can't give you that. For a long moment, they stood there. Two men who had once trusted each other, now separated by lies and politics and power. She's destroying you too, James said finally. You know that, right? William didn't answer. He just turned and walked away. James left the palace for the last time. Outside, the sky was gray. Heavy clouds pressed down on the city. It felt like the world was closing in. His phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from his ex-wife. Our daughter saw the news. She's asking questions. What do I tell her? James stared at the screen. What could he say? How could he explain this to a 10-year-old girl? He typed back, tell her the truth. That sometimes good people get hurt by powerful people, and that her dad didn't do anything wrong. But even as he sent it, he wondered if she would believe it. The rain started to fall. 3 days passed. James barely left his apartment. The media camped outside his building. Reporters knocked on his door at all hours. His face was plastered across every newspaper, every website, every television screen. The court of public opinion had already decided he was guilty. His phone never stopped ringing. Some calls were from journalists hunting for a story. Others were from old colleagues, whispering warnings. Don't fight this, one of them said. You'll only make it worse. But James couldn't let it go. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every loyal person who had ever been thrown away by the powerful. Every servant, every soldier, every ordinary person crushed under the weight of politics and lies. He needed proof. Something to show the world that he was being framed. Late one night, he called an old friend, Marcus Webb. They had served together in the military before. James joined the Royal Guard. Marcus had left the service and become an investigative journalist. Not the tabloid kind. The real kind. The kind who dug until he found the truth. "I was wondering when you'd call," Marcus said when he picked up. "Can you help me?" James asked. "Depends. Are you innocent?" "Completely." It was a pause. Then Marcus sighed. "Where are you?" "Home. Pack a bag. Get out of there. The media will eat you alive if you stay." "Where do I go?" "I've got a place. A flat in South London. No one knows about it. You can stay there while I dig?" James hesitated. Running felt like admitting guilt, but staying felt like waiting to be executed. "Okay," he said finally. 2 hours later, James slipped out the back entrance of his building. He kept his head down, his hood up. The rain was still falling. It hadn't stopped since this nightmare began. Marcus met him at a train station. They didn't speak much on the ride. When they arrived at the flat, it was small and plain, but it was safe. "Give me everything you know," Marcus said, setting up his laptop. Dates, names, conversations, every detail. James told him everything. The argument he'd overheard, Camilla's cold certainty, William's regret, the fake emails that had been planted. Marcus listened, typing notes. His face was grim. "This is worse than I thought," Marcus said. "If what you're saying is true, this isn't just about protecting Camilla's image. This is about controlling the narrative around the entire royal family. And you got caught in the crossfire. Can you prove it?" James asked. "Maybe, but it's going to take time. And it's going to be dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Marcus looked at him seriously. "You're going up against the palace PR machine. They have resources, connections, and power that we can't even imagine. If they find out I'm helping you, they'll come after me too. I can't ask you to risk that," James said. Marcus shook his head. "You're not asking. I'm choosing, because this is the kind of story that matters. The kind that shows people what really happens behind closed doors." Over the next week, Marcus worked around the clock. He reached out to sources inside the palace. People who worked in communications, in security, in administration. Most of them were too scared to talk, but a few were willing to whisper. One name kept coming up. Alicia Brennan. She was Camilla's chief press secretary. The woman who handled all of the Queen's public relations. According to Marcus's sources, she was the one who had orchestrated the entire smear campaign against James. "She's ruthless," one source told Marcus over an encrypted call. "She doesn't care who gets hurt as long as Camilla's image stays clean. And she's very good at what she does." Marcus dug deeper. He found connections between Brennan and several tabloid editors. Payments that didn't appear on any official records. Meetings that were never logged. The evidence was circumstantial, but it was there. Then, Marcus found something bigger. He called James into the room one night, his face pale. "I found the emails," Marcus said. "The fake ones they used to frame you." James felt his heart race. "How?" "A contact in the palace IT department. Someone who felt guilty about what happened. They sent me screenshots." Marcus turned his laptop around. On the screen were emails that appeared to be from James's account. Messages to tabloid journalists. Offers to sell information. Detailed conversations about royal family secrets. But there was one problem. "Look at the timestamps," Marcus said, pointing. James leaned in. The emails were dated and time-stamped. But according to the metadata, they had all been sent from a single IP address, an address that belonged to the palace communications office. "They were created inside the palace," Marcus said quietly, "by someone on Camilla's team." James felt something shift inside him. This was it. This was the proof. "Can we use this?" he asked. Marcus hesitated. "It's complicated. We'd need to verify the source. We'd need more evidence to connect it directly to Brennan or Camila. And we'd need a publication willing to run the story. Will anyone run it? Marcus looked at him. I know someone. An editor at The Guardian. She's honest. She doesn't bow to pressure. But she'll need more than this. She'll need testimony from someone inside. Who? James asked. Marcus closed his laptop. Someone who was in the room when the decision was made. Someone who heard the plan. James knew exactly who that was. Prince William. But getting him to talk was going to be impossible. Asterisk, asterisk, James stared at Marcus. You want me to get Prince William to testify against his own stepmother? Not testify, Marcus corrected. Just confirm. On the record, that's all we need. He'll never do it. You saw what he said at the palace. He's terrified of starting a war inside the royal family. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Then we find another way. But James couldn't stop thinking about it. William was the only person who could end this with a single statement. The only person whose word would be believed over Camila's. That night, James made a decision. He wrote a letter. Not an email. A real letter. Handwritten on paper. The kind that couldn't be traced or hacked or intercepted by palace security systems. In it, he didn't beg. He didn't plead. He simply told the truth. He wrote about the 12 years he had served. About the birthdays he'd missed with his daughter. About the pride he had felt wearing that uniform. And about the shame that now followed him everywhere. He wrote about honor. Real honor. Not the kind that appeared in headlines, but the kind that lived in a man's heart. At the end, he wrote, You said you couldn't give me back my honor, but you can. All you have to do is tell the truth. That's all I'm asking. Not for revenge. Not for money. Just for the truth. He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. William would know who it was from. The next morning, James took a train to Windsor. He knew William sometimes went there on weekends, away from the chaos of Kensington. It was a risk. If palace security caught him, he'd be arrested for trespassing. But he had to try. He waited outside the gates. Hours passed. Tourists came and went. Guards changed shifts. The sun moved across the sky. Then, just before dusk, a black car pulled up to the gate. James recognized it immediately. He stepped forward, his heart pounding. The window rolled down. Prince William looked out, his face tired and drawn. Sergeant Hartley, he said quietly, you shouldn't be here. I know, James said. He held up the envelope. But I needed to give you this. William stared at the letter. For a moment, James thought he would refuse it. But then the prince reached out and took it. Please, James said. Just read it. William didn't respond. The window rolled up, and the car drove through the gates. James stood there for a long time. He didn't know if it would matter, but at least he had tried. 2 days later, Marcus got a phone call. It was late at night. James was asleep on the couch when Marcus shook him awake. You're not going to believe this, Marcus said, his eyes wide. What? Someone just sent me an encrypted file. Audio recordings. From inside the palace? James sat up. What kind of recordings? Marcus played one. The voices were clear. Camilla and Alicia Brennan, her press secretary. We need someone credible, Camilla's voice said. Someone the public will believe betrayed us. What about Hartley? Brennan replied. He's been with William for years. Perfect fall guy. Will it hold up? I'll make sure it does. Fake emails, planted evidence, witness statements from people we control. By the time we're done, no one will question it. James felt cold. Hearing it like this, in their own words, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Where did you get this? James asked. I don't know, Marcus said. The file came from an anonymous source. No return address. No identifying information. He knew exactly who had sent it. William Marcus spent the next day verifying the audio. He brought in forensic experts who confirmed it was authentic. Not edited. Not manipulated. Real. Then Marcus contacted his editor friend at The Guardian. Her name was Sarah Chen. She was in her 50s. sharp-eyed and unafraid. Marcus had worked with her before and trusted her completely. She listened to the recordings. She reviewed the evidence. And then she looked at James. "This is massive," she said. "If we publish this, it will shake the entire monarchy." "Will you do it?" Marcus asked. Sarah paused. "I need to talk to my legal team, and I need to make absolutely sure we can protect our sources. But yes, I think we have to." James felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope, but Sarah wasn't done. "You need to prepare yourself," she said to James. "When this comes out, the palace will fight back. Hard. They'll try to discredit you, discredit us, discredit the recordings. It's going to get ugly." "I don't care," James said. "I just want people to know the truth." Sarah nodded. "Then we'll publish tomorrow morning." That night, James couldn't sleep. He paced the small flat, his mind racing. This was it. The moment that would either clear his name or bury him forever. At 3 a.m, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry I couldn't do it in person, but I hope this helps. You deserved better." James stared at the message. Prince William. Apologizing. Helping. Finally doing the right thing. James typed back, "Thank you." The response came quickly. "No, thank you. For your service and for reminding me what honor really means." James set the phone down. Outside, the city was dark and quiet. But inside, something had shifted. Tomorrow, the world would know the truth. And James would finally get his honor back. The article went live at 6 a.m. James sat in the flat, watching his phone as notifications exploded across the screen. Marcus sat beside him, monitoring social media and news sites. Sarah had done exactly what she promised. The story was thorough, detailed, and devastating. The headline read, "Palace Conspiracy: How Queen Camilla's Team Framed a Loyal Guard." Within minutes, it was trending worldwide. The article included everything. The audio recordings, the fake emails with their palace IP address, testimony from anonymous palace sources, and a detailed timeline showing exactly how the smear campaign had been orchestrated. James read the comments as they poured in. Thousands of them. "This is disgusting. The royal family should be ashamed. Justice for Sergeant Hartley. Camilla needs to resign." But not everyone believed it. The palace released a statement within the hour. "These allegations are entirely false and represent a coordinated attack on Her Majesty the Queen. The recordings in question are taken out of context, and we are pursuing legal action against all parties involved." The PR machine had begun its counterattack by noon. Palace-friendly journalists were pushing back. Articles appeared questioning the authenticity of the recordings. Opinion pieces suggested James was seeking revenge. Talking heads on television debated whether the whole thing was a publicity stunt. Marcus had warned him this would happen. But knowing it and living through it were two different things. James's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Sergeant Hartley." The voice was professional, female. "My name is Diana Ross. I'm a solicitor. I'd like to represent you." "I can't afford a lawyer," James said. "You don't need to. I'm offering my services pro bono. What's been done to you is unconscionable, and I'd like to help set it right." James felt a wave of relief. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Diana said. "This is going to be a battle, but I think we can win it." Over the next 2 days, the story grew. More palace insiders came forward, emboldened by the Guardian article. They spoke anonymously, confirming that Camilla's press team had a history of manipulating narratives and silencing critics. One source revealed that James wasn't the first person to be thrown under the bus. There had been others. Staff members who had been quietly dismissed, their reputations destroyed, their careers ended, all to protect the Queen's image. The public outcry intensified. Protests formed outside Buckingham Palace. People carried signs reading "Honor for Hartley" and "End Palace Corruption." Inside the palace, chaos reigned. According to Marcus's sources, emergency meetings were being held. Advisors argued. Lawyers scrambled. and Camilla herself had retreated from public view, refusing to comment. But the person everyone wanted to hear from was Prince William. Days passed. He remained silent. Then, on the 5th day after the article was published, something unexpected happened. James received a call from Diana, his solicitor. Her voice was excited. "Turn on the television now." James grabbed the remote. Every news channel was showing the same thing. A press conference. At Kensington Palace, Prince William stood at a podium, his face serious. Behind him, the royal crest. Cameras flashed. "Thank you for coming," William began. His voice was steady, but James could hear the emotion underneath. "I'm here to address the recent allegations regarding Sergeant James Hartley." James held his breath. "Sergeant Hartley served my family with distinction for 12 years, William continued. "He was loyal, honorable, and dedicated. And he was betrayed." A murmur ran through the crowd of reporters. Allegations made against him were false. Entirely false. They were created by individuals within the palace communications office in an effort to deflect criticism from other members of the royal family. I was aware of this plan, and I did not stop it. James felt tears sting his eyes. "I failed, Sergeant Hartley," William said, his voice cracking slightly. "I failed to protect a man who had given everything to protect me. And for that, I am deeply sorry." The room erupted with questions. Reporters shouted over each other, but William held up his hand. "I take full responsibility for what happened. I should have spoken up immediately. I should have stood by the truth. Instead, I allowed politics and fear to guide my actions. That was wrong." He paused, looking directly into the cameras. "Sergeant Hartley, if you're watching this, I want you to know that you have my deepest apologies. Your honor was never in question, and I will do everything in my power to ensure it is restored." William stepped away from the podium, ignoring the shouting reporters. The press conference ended. James sat in stunned silence. Marcus was grinning. He did it. He actually did it. James's phone started ringing again. This time, it was journalists requesting interviews, producers offering television appearances, publishers interested in his story, but James ignored them all. Instead, he called his daughter Dad. She answered, her young voice uncertain. "Hey, sweetheart," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "I saw the news. Mom said you didn't do anything wrong." "That's right, baby. I didn't. Are you coming home?" James smiled through his tears. "Yeah, I'm coming home." That night, the palace released another statement. This one was different. Following Prince William's statement, an internal investigation has been launched. Alicia Brennan, Chief Press Secretary to Her Majesty Queen Camilla, has resigned effective immediately. Further actions will be taken as the investigation concludes. Camilla herself issued no comment, but sources said she was furious. The narrative she had tried so hard to control had slipped entirely from her grasp. James sat in the flat, watching the news coverage. Marcus had opened a bottle of whiskey, and they drank together in quiet celebration. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. James thought about it. His name was cleared, his honor restored, but the cost had been enormous. He'd lost his career, his privacy, and weeks of his life to fear and uncertainty. "I don't know," James said honestly, "but whatever it is, it'll be on my terms." For the first time in weeks, he slept through the night. 3 weeks later, James stood outside his old apartment building. The media circus had finally died down. The reporters had moved on to other stories. The protests had ended. Life, slowly, was returning to normal. But James knew that nothing would ever really be the same. He had received dozens of job offers. Security firms, private companies, even other government positions. Everyone wanted to hire the man who had stood up to the palace and won. But James wasn't ready yet. He needed time to figure out who he was now that he wasn't Sergeant Hartley, Royal Guard. His phone buzzed. A message from Prince William. "Would you be willing to meet? I owe you more than an apology." James stared at the message for a long time. Part of him wanted to refuse. The wounds were still too fresh. But another part of him knew that William had done something incredibly difficult. He had risked everything to tell the truth. James typed back, "Where and when?" 2 days later, they met at a private location. Not the palace. A quiet estate in the countryside, far from cameras and prying eyes. William was waiting when James arrived. He looked older somehow. The weight of what had happened showed in his face. "Thank you for coming," William said. They sat in a small library, just the two of them. No guards, no staff. Just two men trying to make sense of what had happened. "I've been thinking about what you said," William began. "About honor. Real honor. You were right. I thought I was protecting the crown by staying silent, but all I did was protect cowards." James didn't respond. He let William continue. "My father spent his whole life trying to modernize the monarchy, to make it relevant, to show that we could serve the people, not just rule them. And in one moment of weakness, I betrayed everything he worked for." "You did the right thing in the end," James said quietly. "But it shouldn't have taken so long," William replied. "You suffered for weeks because I was afraid. That's not leadership. That's cowardice." They sat in silence for a moment. "What will happen to Camila?" James asked. William's jaw tightened. "She's lost most of her public duties. The investigation found that her press team had been conducting similar campaigns against others. Staff members who questioned her, journalists who criticized her, even minor royals who she felt threatened by. It was systematic. Will she face charges?" "No," William said bitterly. "She's still queen consort. The crown protects its own, even when it shouldn't. But her power is gone. She'll live out the rest of her time in quiet obscurity." James nodded. "It wasn't justice, not really, but it was something." "I want to offer you something," William said. "Not your old position. I know you wouldn't take that even if I offered. But I'm establishing a foundation. For people like you, people who have been wronged by institutions and power structures, people who deserve better." He pulled out a folder and handed it to James. "I'd like you to run it. Not as an employee. As a partner, we'd work together to help others who have been treated the way you were." James opened the folder. Inside were detailed plans, funding commitments, legal frameworks. This wasn't just an idea. This was real. "Why me?" James asked. "Because you understand what it's like to be powerless against power," William said. "And because I trust you to do it right." James looked at the documents. It was a second chance. Not just for him, but for everyone who had been crushed by systems they couldn't fight. "I'll think about it," James said. William nodded. "That's all I ask." They stood. William extended his hand. James shook it. As James drove away from the estate, his phone rang. It was his daughter. "Dad, are you coming to my school play next week?" James smiled. "I wouldn't miss it for anything, promise." "I promise." For 12 years, James had missed moments like these. Birthdays, plays, parent-teacher conferences, all sacrificed for duty. But not anymore. When he arrived at his ex-wife's house to pick up his daughter, she met him at the door. Her expression was complicated. Proud, but also sad. "She's been watching the news," his ex-wife said. "She knows what happened." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you're a good man. That you did nothing wrong. That sometimes the world isn't fair, but that doesn't mean you stop fighting." James felt his throat tighten. His daughter came running down the stairs, backpack bouncing. She threw her arms around him. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said. James held her tight. "I'm proud of you too, sweetheart." That night, he took her to dinner. They talked about school, about her friends, about the play she was rehearsing. Normal things. Beautiful things. Later, after he dropped her off, James drove to Marcus's flat. His friend was working on another story, his laptop covered in notes. "You look different," Marcus said when James walked in. "Lighter." James smiled. "I feel lighter," he told Marcus about William's offer. About the foundation. About the chance to help others. "You should do it," Marcus said immediately. "You'd be brilliant at it, you think?" "I know you've lived it. You understand what it takes to fight back? And you won. That matters." James sat down, thinking about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the lies, the fear, but also the courage. The truth. The redemption. I think I will, James said. I think I'll take the job. Marcus grinned. Good, because the world needs more people like you. 1 month later, the foundation launched. James stood at another press conference, this time as the director. Cameras flashed, but this time he wasn't afraid. We're here to help those who have been silenced, James said into the microphone. Those who have been wronged by powerful institutions. We'll provide legal support, financial assistance, and most importantly, a voice.
How?
The response was overwhelming. Within days, hundreds of people reached out. Palace staff who had been dismissed unfairly, soldiers betrayed by their commanders. Ordinary people crushed by systems designed to protect the powerful. James worked tirelessly. He met with victims, connected them with lawyers, shared their stories, and slowly, things began to change. 6 months later, James received a letter. It was from a young woman who had been a maid at the palace. She had been fired for speaking up about harassment. The foundation had helped her win a settlement and clear her name. Thank you, the letter said. You gave me back my dignity. James read it 3 times. Then he put it in a drawer with dozens of others just like it. That night, he tucked his daughter into bed. She looked up at him with sleepy eyes. Dad, do you miss being a guard? James thought about it. Sometimes. But I like what I'm doing now more. Why? Because now, I'm not just protecting one family. I'm protecting everyone who needs it. She smiled. That's better, James said, kissing her forehead. It is. As he walked out of her room, he caught his reflection in the hallway mirror. He looked different now. Older, maybe, but also stronger. He had lost his position, his reputation, his sense of identity. But he had gained something more valuable, his honor. And this time, no one could take it away.